My name is Alexei, and I want to tell you about something that happened to me and my friends a few years ago. We decided to spend a weekend in the countryside and rented an old house in the woods. There were 5 of us: me, my girlfriend Nastya, our mutual friend Dmitry, his sister Irina, and our neighbor Pavel. The house was far away from civilization, and it seemed to us a great opportunity to have a break from the hustle and bustle of the city. We arrived on Friday evening. The house looked neglected, but inside it was clean and cozy. We laid out our things and decided to spend the evening around the campfire. At first, everything was fine, laughing, talking, reminiscing. But soon I noticed that Nastya started acting strange. She said she felt uncomfortable, and it seemed to her that someone was watching us. I tried to calm her down, assuring her that it was just her imagination. The next day, we went into the woods to get firewood. The forest was thick and dark, but we tried to stay together. At one point, I noticed that Pavel had disappeared. We started looking for him, but without success. We went back to the house, hoping he was already there, but he wasn't. Nastya started to panic again. I decided that we should go looking for him, but Dmitry and Irina said that it was better to wait, in case Pavel had just gone for a walk. Several hours passed, and Pavel never returned. Night came, and we all started to get nervous. The house was dark and quiet, and every sound seemed frightening. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the window. As I came closer, I saw that it was Paul. He looked scared and said that someone was chasing him in the woods. We let him in, and he told us that he had seen a man with a knife. We realized we had to leave, but the car wouldn't start. We decided it was best to stay together and wait for morning. We closed all the doors and windows and locked ourselves in one room. Nastya suggested that we take turns on duty so that someone would always be on guard. We agreed. Dmitry was the first one on duty. We all tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Every sound made me flinch. In the night, I heard strange noises coming from the basement. I woke up the others, and we decided to go downstairs. The basement was dark and damp. We found a few old things, but nothing suspicious. As we went back upstairs, I felt that someone was watching us. We hurried back to the room and closed the door. In the morning, we decided to inspect the house more thoroughly. In one of the rooms on the second floor, we found an old newspaper. It told of a series of murders that had taken place in the neighborhood a few years ago. We realized that the maniac might still be here. Deciding not to panic, we started looking for a way to fix the car. We split into groups. Nastya and I went to the barn to get tools. Dmitry and Pavel stayed in the house, and Irina went to the kitchen to look for food. When we returned to the house, we saw Dmitry lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Pavel was screaming that he had been attacked, but he couldn't see who it was. We all started to panic. We decided we had to leave immediately, but the car still wouldn't start. We grabbed what we could and decided to walk to the nearest town. Nastya walked beside me, her hands shaking. Irina walked ahead. Pavel closed our small column. The forest seemed endless. At some point, I noticed that Nastya had disappeared. I shouted her name, but there was no answer. We kept walking, but fear was holding us back. Suddenly, Pavel started shouting that he saw someone up ahead. We ran, but he tripped and fell. I turned around to help him, but saw only emptiness. Irina yelled to keep running. We ran out onto the road and saw a car. We were lucky. It was a random car whose driver agreed to help. We reached the town and told the locals what had happened. They said that this forest is known for its scary stories, and that there really is a maniac who has been killing people there for years. We realized that we were lucky to survive. Since then, I often think about what happened in that forest. I will never forget those terrible days and nights. That story still gives me goosebumps and makes me look back whenever I walk down a dark corridor or forest path. My name is Victor, and I want to tell you about what happened to me and my family a few years ago. My wife Olga and I, and our children Anya and Petya, moved into a new house. It was an old mansion, which we bought at a very favorable price. The house was in a quiet neighborhood, and it seemed to us to be the perfect place to start a new life. The first month went smoothly. We were settling in, getting the house in order, getting to know the neighbors. The children were excited about the new rooms and the large garden. My wife and I enjoyed the peace and comfort of our new home. One night, I woke up to a strange noise. It was a faint rustling coming from the basement. I got up and went to see what was there. When I opened the basement door, I turned on the light, but I didn't see anything unusual. Back in the bedroom, I decided that it was just the wind or mice. The next day, Olga said she heard noises from the cellar too. We decided to check it out together. Going downstairs, we looked in all the corners, but found nothing. The basement was empty, and there was nothing to indicate the presence of anyone unauthorized. A few days passed, and we were beginning to forget about the strange sounds, when suddenly Petya said that he saw a man in the hallway at night. We thought that he had dreamed it and didn't pay much attention to it. But the next day, Anya said the same thing. We started to worry. In the evening, I decided to check the whole house. I checked all the windows and doors, made sure they were closed. But I had the feeling that someone was watching us. During the night, I heard the noise from the basement again. This time it was louder. I went downstairs and suddenly noticed that one of the walls was slightly ajar. Behind the wall was a hidden room. In this room, I saw signs of a person's presence: an old mattress, empty bottles, and dirty clothes. I realized that someone was living in our basement. I quickly went back upstairs and told my wife everything. We decided not to panic, and in the morning to call a specialist to inspect the house and install new locks. The next day, we called the handyman, and he installed new locks on all the doors and windows. We felt a little calmer, but we were still wary. During the night, I heard someone scraping against the wall. I grabbed a flashlight and went to check it out. When I got to the basement, I saw that the hidden room was open again, but no one was there. I started looking around and noticed that there was another passage leading out of the room. Walking through it, I came out into an old part of the house that we hadn't explored yet. There was old furniture, cobwebs, and dust. I suddenly heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw a man. He was standing there looking at me. He had a knife in his hands. I screamed and ran upstairs. Olga and the children were already awake and looked frightened. We quickly packed up and ran out of the house. Stopping on the street, I called the neighbors for help. They helped us and called specialists to inspect the house. The next day, the specialists discovered many hidden passages and hiding places. It turned out that the house used to belong to a man who was engaged in illegal activities, and he had equipped it with many secret rooms and passageways. We realized that some of his acquaintances or followers continued to use the house. We sold that house and moved to another place. Since then, I often think about what happened. This story still gives me goosebumps and makes me more careful when choosing a place to live. My name is Sergey, and I want to tell you about what happened to us at my friend's country dacha. We decided to spend the weekend there. There were 5 of us: me, my girlfriend Lena, our friend Vadim, his sister Katya, and our colleague Igor. The house was on the outskirts, surrounded by forest. We thought it would be a great place to relax and have fun. We arrived on Friday evening. The house was old but cozy. The evening passed quietly as we built a fire, grilled kebabs, chatted and laughed. The night was quiet and we went to bed, happy with the start of our vacation. The next day morning, we decided to explore the surrounding area. The forest was thick and mysterious. We walked around, picked berries and mushrooms. At some point, Lena said that it seemed to her as if someone was watching us. We laughed and said it was just her imagination. But soon I started to feel the same way myself. Back at the house, we decided to spend the rest of the day inside. In the evening, it started to rain heavily, so we stayed inside. Lena started talking again about the strange feeling that someone was watching us. I decided to check the windows and doors to make sure everything was locked. As I walked around the house, I noticed a shadow in the woods that quickly disappeared between the trees. My heart beat faster, but I didn't say anything to the others so as not to scare them. During the night, I was awakened by a strange sound. It was a creaking sound, as if someone was walking on the wooden floor. I got up and quietly walked out of the room. The hallway was dark. I went to the sound and noticed that the door to the kitchen was ajar. When I opened it, no one was there, but the window was open. I closed it and went back to the bedroom, hoping it was just the wind. The next day, we decided it would be better to leave. But Igor offered to stay another day, assuring us that we were just scaring ourselves. We agreed, but we felt uneasy. We spent the day in the house, playing board games and watching movies. In the evening, it started raining again. We were sitting in the living room when we heard a knock on the door. I went to open it, but didn't see anyone. Back at my friend's house, I said it could have been the wind. But Lena insisted that she heard footsteps outside the window. We decided that we would all sleep together in the same room to feel safer. During the night, I heard the creaking again. This time the sound was closer. I got up and saw that the door of the room was open. In the hallway stood a man with a knife. I rushed to Lena and yelled for everyone to wake up. We started screaming and running towards the exit. Vadim grabbed a heavy object and lunged at the stranger. We ran out of the house and ran into the forest. We ran for a long time until we got on the road. We stopped the first car we could find and told the driver what had happened. He drove us to the nearest town. We decided to return home and never visit that dacha again. A few days later, we learned from the locals that people often go missing in those forests, and that there was a maniac who had been keeping the neighborhood in fear for years. We realized how lucky we were to be able to escape. Since then, I have often thought about that weekend. I will never forget those scary nights and that man with the knife. That story still gives me goosebumps and makes me cautious in unfamiliar places.